My name is Hannah Burns, and I am the founder of Ripple. At Ripple, we put together customized wellness solutions in the corporate setting. So our experts address the physical, emotional, the social, intellectual, as well as the spiritual in the workplace. Our philosophy is that the workplace shouldn't diminish health, it should encourage it. And that was the genesis behind launching this company.
Hello, Hannah. It's such a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you as well.
I love it because my very good friend and our good friend Christina introduced us via LinkedIn, and she's like, I go, you have to talk to Hannah. She's doing wonderful things. And I'm like, I go, if you're telling me to talk to Hannah, I need to meet Hannah. So I'm so happy that you're able to like have this conversation with me. So before we talk about your company and what's happening in the world right now, like I just want to learn about you. Like, I mean, where did you come from? Where and who are you that led you to what you're doing right now?
Wow, that's a loaded question, right? So I grew up in Connecticut. I went to Bryant University for college. I played soccer there, and I studied finance. And then I moved up to Boston about 15 years ago, and had been working in the corporate space, specifically in finance for small lenders and, one of the big four in the deals valuation group. So fast-paced, tight timelines, big deadlines, lots of money. And the wellness piece of my personal life was always kind of there and prevalent. And I just felt like there was more for me to do in the wellness space. And because I had this experience in the corporate setting and had seen businesses that did support me from a wellness standpoint, and then I had been with businesses that had not, I feel like I had the appropriate experience to begin to pull together, experts in the fields of wellness to create customized solutions. So I had a child, my son, 2.5 years ago. I have a 10-month-old as well. And I just felt like after having my 10-month-old that I could give more to this space than I was. And I decided to pivot my career then. So I launched Ripple this summer, and that's where I'm at right now.
All right. I think you're the third person that I've spoken to recently, not on the podcast per se, but like speaking to personally recently that were in the financial world and decided to like change. We all know how intense and how demanding that job is to be in the financial world, especially as a woman. What was it that you loved about the finance that you even like got you? I mean, you were a soccer player, right? You were a soccer player, and now you went into the financial world. Being an athlete, you're competitive already. In the financial world, competitive. It definitely makes sense that you kind of fell into that. But what was it that you found? You could have gone straight business, not financial. What about finance that got you like to say like, I go, this is where I want to like start building out my career?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's a competitive nature, even when you're in college, taking the courses. You're rewarded if you're a quick thinker, if you're strategic. And I feel like that was a skill set that I naturally kind of had. I mean, I don't say that, I didn't walk in my freshman year and say I'm doing finance, but I did well. It felt good. I liked the trajectory from, a personal standpoint of, there was high growth at the time. And I feel like finance gives you a lot of opportunity as well. So I was planning to move to Boston, and I was like, well, if I have a finance degree, I can do anything. And that's kind of what I thought. And that proved to be true. I mean, I feel like I had really great opportunities. I worked for wonderful people. I went and actually, I got my MBA at Boston University part-time while I was working in my late 20s. So I still, I feel like, and I wouldn't have changed what I did as far as my major and working in the corporate setting for 15 years, because I feel like now, from a financial standpoint, I know how to run a business. Yes, I'm new to being an entrepreneur, so that has its challenges, but I feel like I have a good base. And I also was able to see the corporate setting in the way that a lot of people do. And so I can relate to the burnout, but I can also relate to the successes. I, I, I wouldn't have kept working there for 15 years if I didn't enjoy it. Right. So, corporate finance gets a bad rap.
It
I think
does for many reasons.
I think for many reasons, but I also think that there's a reason why people stay there, right? You have the upside financially. You like the adrenaline, you like solving problems. Like that's intoxicating. So I get that.
You are seeing the world right now as we live in. You have a financial background. 10, 11 years ago, you remember where the world was. Lehman crashed. I mean, 100-plus-year-old company. What are you seeing? Like, I mean, like it's. I always laugh when people like come to me. They're like, I go, yeah, I changed my religion. I'm like, I go until something happens that you end up with like a cusp of like this is the religion I was raised with, and so a major topic comes up, and they go to what they know. So in the financial world, you're seeing everything that's happening around the world right now, and although you are in the entrepreneurial ecosystem right now, you have your own business. At the end of the day, you're still a financial person. So what does that look like for you when you're looking at everything that's happening? I mean, how are you seeing it in regards of as a business owner right now? But you have colleagues that you used to work with, and they're still in the financial world. What are your thoughts from 10 years ago to now?
So what I'm seeing from business owners that I'm talking to, and I feel like this was my initial reaction as well in the pandemic, was that people are closing in, that they're buttoning up their purses. They're just saying like, let's just sit and wait. And let's wait this out. And I felt like I did that personally as well. We all kind of did, right? The exciting thing that I am seeing, and me personally as well, is this is an opportunity. This is a shakeup, and I couldn't be more excited to be an entrepreneur in this environment, because I feel like where there's a shakeup, there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity for risk, which I'm intimately aware of. But I think for me, and what a lot of business owners are trying to understand is, where is that opportunity?
Uh, 10 years ago, where were you?
I was in Boston, working at a private lending firm, and we lent money to distressed companies. And at that time, there was a lot of distressed companies. So maybe that too, thinking about where I came from, right? There's an opportunity in a down market. And my business specifically at that time did very well. So there are winners. It's hard to find that in this where we are now, but it can be done.
Do you see a difference between 10 years ago and now?
Yes, definitely.
Could you tell us, because that's one of the things where I started my company 11 years ago during that time, and so I'm looking at people now, but I'm looking at people in regards to the marketing, media, entrepreneurial, my ecosystem. The numbers always fascinate me. I love seeing the numbers. I love hearing the stories. I have relatives and friends that were at Lehman. I know people that are in the financial world. But I mean, what's the difference between what happened? Because I mean, we're always going to have an up year. We're always going to have a down year. We're going to have recessions throughout your lifetime. You're going to see them over and over again. But it was such a small gap between these two. So when we're starting to get back up, boom. I mean, the floor gets ripped off under our feet. So what's the difference that you see in your opinion? What's the difference between 10 years ago and now?
What I see is that the shakeup now is not a matter of, if you wait a year, you're going to survive. I think businesses are just completely being wiped out. I think industries are being completely wiped out. We didn't really see that before. We saw consolidation. We saw mergers and acquisitions. I think now we're doing business differently. And that's like cliche. Everyone is saying that now, but major players in the industry will no longer be around. And so that's unique. And you experienced it as a business owner 11 years ago. I'm experiencing it, kind of working for a business and now on my own. And I think now we're experienced in it, right? I mean, as crazy as that sounds, it's can you pivot? Can you adjust? Where do you see the opportunity? It's not an experience that you would wish on any business owner, but I mean, you versus, your business prior to 11 years ago is so different, right? And all that hard work. And I think you have to think of it as a learning moment and take what you can away from it.
I love that you said that because so I was in my MBA course when the world was imploding, and the president of our school came and said, every single one of you guys are now overqualified and no one will hire you. So go live with your capstone. And my company is my capstone. So 11 years later, it's a live capstone. But you said it really, really well. This is an opportunity. So you come from, you've witnessed this entire, within 10 years, you witness all of this. You are in the financial world, you have a family, you see the opportunity, you are hungry, you're a hustler, you are all about strategy, you have your own business. Where did this come from? Like, what happened where all of a sudden you're like, this is the time? Because one would assume you're a young company. One would assume that you're not going to start. I believe that you should always start a company when the economy is bad or when there's a crisis. Is a great opportunity. But you were doing so well and you were safe. Why did you choose to switch over?
So I get asked that a lot.
The question of the questions.
Yeah, no, it is a great question, right? So it goes back to, my strengths. And I felt like working in finance, at some points I would hit that optimal level where I felt like career-wise, I was doing great. I had a great balance at home. I'm very active physically. I felt like, I felt good. But there were a lot of other times where there was this huge imbalance where I felt like, I wasn't fully participating at home and I wasn't doing well at work. And I noticed that a lot of that had to do with my own personal wellness and my focus. And I could go on for days about, taking care of yourself physically and mentally. And so I felt like, why could I not take the world of finance and corporate finance and help them in a way that I think would be really valuable? Because I had felt like there were times when I succeeded and there were times when I did not. And I felt like I could really pinpoint why that was. And it had to do with wellness and losing touch with that. And so I always knew I was going to start my own company. I had worked for entrepreneurs. Maybe you've heard this from the people you interviewed, but every time I was in a meeting or at a really pivotal milestone in my career, I was like, okay, that's great, but we could have done this. And, I like what we did here, but we could have done this. And I felt like the only setting that I could go and do what I wanted was being my own boss. So that's what led me to here.
So, as a financial, with a financial background, with the fact that you're an athlete, you could have gone anywhere. You could have gone anywhere. You went into wellness. Some people feel it's foo-foo, like a fooey, it's soft. It's like self-help. Some people gravitate towards it like this is like a need to. You are taking this entire concept and bringing it into corporate, where it's needed the most, where it's neglected the most, and it's a nice to have, not a need to have, in a lot of corporate settings, where we're putting it in so that way, look, we look like a great corporate organization and we just added this and our employees will be very happy. But if I have to choose you being in the office and working 10 zillion hours because there's a deliverable, or you going to yoga class, guess what I'm choosing? And so how are you able to interject this entire concept in a corporate setting where they ask you to give you so much? I mean, they literally take so much of you, and you getting sick, that's on your own time, by the way. You getting better,
Right.
it's on your own time. So how do you make that, how do you create that discussion inside that corporate setting and make it believable where they're like, I believe in what this is, and we believe in our employees, and we want them to do well?
So I decided to launch Ripple before the pandemic. Literally it launched midst of the pandemic, but the idea had been there for a long time.
Yep.
So that conversation now, I would say, has gotten easier. I think people recognize that setting up a 5K or tracking steps or offering free yoga classes or even offering memberships to these some of the apps on mindfulness and nutrition, I think they're great. I just don't think that they are effective in making people healthier. And we know this, statistically speaking. So the conversation of where the boundaries are between the employer and the employee's health has gotten a little closer. So from my standpoint, it's an easier conversation. My challenge rests more on, are these companies making enough revenue today to pay for something like this? And so what I come back to them with is, listen, let's look at your most vulnerable employees from a chronic health standpoint, and let's put the money towards them there for nutrition, for a life coach. Maybe we don't touch all 300 of your employees. Maybe we look at the top 20 employees who are incurring 80% of your healthcare costs and focus our efforts there. So the conversation starter, I don't really need to have that anymore. I think people are aware. Now it's, how do we actually go from tracking steps to making people healthier? So
I love that you just said this, where the conversation is easier now because of COVID. And I think, or maybe is it easier because they're home? So which one is it? Is it easier because of the pandemic, or is it easier because they're home and now they're aware of, let's do a checklist of what we have as offerings for employees? Because usually when we're face to face, we're moving too fast.
So again, I launched my business in the middle of the pandemic. So I guess for me to say it's easier than to have the conversation in the pandemic is just, that's been my experience. I haven't met anyone in human resources or, in charge of people or human capital that's saying, what's, corporate wellness, what's like, no. Okay. So is it because we're home? Maybe, probably. We've slowed down. We're seeing how our brains feel. We're seeing how our bodies feel. We feel the lack of connection. I mean, that's come to forefront too.
Another thing that you said that really caught my attention, which is something that people are paying attention to, is the insurance for the team. Especially in the state of Massachusetts, it's required. When you hit a certain number, it's required that you get insurance for your team. And I love how you just said that we focus on making sure that you're helping you're helping the community in the organization to lessen the insurance costs, but also focusing on the top tier. You're not going to hit all 300 or how many numbers that you have, but you're going to go after the individuals that are the highest cost to the insurance. Most companies would fire them. Most companies would find a way to eliminate that individual, which is, most people think like, oh my God, that people don't do that. They do that because insurance costs is so important to a lot of companies. So why did you decide to do that? I mean, like, why was that your strategy of going after, and it's so smart, but why was it that strategy? Because at one point or another, I mean, there could be individuals on the team that need more help, they just don't seek it. And then there's those individuals that know themselves very well and they're like constantly seeking it.
So I think it's going to vary by business type. There are some small businesses that are not self-insured, so they're co-insured, and the owners just put health as the number one priority, and they spend significant amount of money per employee head on health and wellness initiatives. Like, that's the owner that I want to meet every day. Okay, so that's not who I'm meeting every day. I'm meeting owners that need to prioritize and strategize their spend, especially now in COVID. And it's important. It just comes down to spending the money where it'll actually make a difference. I think unique to Ripple, and I'll tell you more about where the name came from too. But there's these awesome apps out there now for diabetes, everything, mindfulness, nutrition. And I think they're really effective in larger organizations, but they were built predominantly to scale globally day one. And that's not what Ripple is. We're nimble, we're going in, we're working with the employees that need help, the high risk employees. If you want to do something beyond that, we're happy to help. But I think that you have to start somewhere, and that's kind of small changes, incremental changes will build momentum. And that's kind of where the genesis behind Ripple came from. So I'd love to go into a business, walk in, revamp their wellness program, set a budget next year, have metrics, do screenings. That's in my reality. That's not my reality right now.
You just started the conversation. How, if you're engaging with our company, walk us through the steps. What happens? We've just decided that we want to work with you, but what happens from that point on?
So the first thing we would do is meet with the decision makers. Working in finance, you understand that for HR, other budgeting items, there are people that decide how much to spend each year, right? So we need to talk to them. We need to understand what the corporate culture is. Are they similar to what you said earlier? Is it just painting a pretty picture to help hire people in, saying we have great benefits? Or are these owners or management, really wanting to lead, showing people the way to do it personally? So then we would, depending on the needs of the employees. So for instance, if we worked for a manufacturing company, some of the programs that come to mind would be nutrition, making sure they're getting correct sleep, especially if they're on 3 shifts, or injury prevention. So that would be some sort of stretching mobility that we would implement. So versus more of a white collar business, more mindfulness, stress management, life coaching, physical fitness at home. So you have to be kind of sensitive to each industry, obviously. So then we would go in. What I've done is I've partnered up with other local experts in wellness. So again, my background is finance. My strengths are bringing people together, creating a plan and getting to that end goal. And so I have doctors in psychology. I have trainers, nutritionists, life coaches that we kind of sit around a table, not literally anymore, and plan out kind of the wellness strategy for the businesses. And then it's seeing what the metrics are producing and tweaking, because I think that another value add for Ripple is that we're human. This isn't working, we can tweak it. We're not a massive bureaucratic program coming in here spending millions of dollars. Let's address the health and then worry about the finances later. So
I love that you have brought you're known for bringing people together. How did you find that team that you knew that I need to have this person, this person, this person? Where do they come from? What are their credentials? And how has it been working with a team? Now you have this, you have a team, and I'm sure you've worked with teams in the past, but this is a whole entire concept of we are working with human beings one-on-one on their being versus with their finances. And mind you, that relationship is just the same on so many different levels, because politics, finance, and religion, we don't talk about. Our healthcare, we don't talk about it.
No, we don't
talk about that. Men don't like going to doctors. Women, we're taking care of everybody else. So you are literally at the heart's core of that individual. And now you're bringing in all these specialists. How are you finding them? And how are you guys finding that sweet spot of working together with these core individuals that need your help?
So that's been the best part about this, honestly. I'm opened up to a whole new world of professionals. And going back to your point, they're working with people on their health, on, adding time to their lives. Like, I was helping close corporate deals. It's just so much more meaningful for me. And what you see, what resonates is when you meet these professionals, they tell you what they do, you hear the stories, you talk to clients that they had. It's just very energizing. And so that also helped me gain momentum. Okay, I'm working with the nutritionist that is the nutritionist for the Boston Bruins right now, and she's wanting to get into the corporate space because she wants to collaborate with trainers and she wants to collaborate with life coaches because she feels like there's more than one answer, right? And that health is multiple pillars. And so if we go back to the balance, it's like, I need more of this focus now, I need more of this focus. And she knows that nutrition is very important, but she also knows there's a whole nother world out there to support an individual. So not only are these people experts in their field, they're also willing to collaborate with other experts in wellness. And so that was ultimately why I chose these handful of change makers, is what I call them, because they have to be open-minded and flexible and looking to go beyond just their individual expertise.
I love it. You are a baby in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. You're a baby. You're a baby.
Very big baby.
I have spoken to so many people in regards to what would you say to someone that literally is at home, they're getting paid by their business. They realize now that I'm at home, I'm not really enjoying that job that I've had for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I feel it's my time to get out there, or I waited too long to leave the company that I'm in, and this is like a perfect opportunity to make that move. Or I've gotten furloughed or laid off. Starting a business. I mean, literally, what would you say to someone that you are right in it? You left a very comfortable place. What's the advice that you would give in regards to making the leap and starting the business?
So one of the life coaches that I'm working with helped me articulate this. And she said, it's really important to redefine success. Mm-hmm. And so on paper, I had a great job, a great company, mm-hmm. great benefits. And my path was pretty visible. There was a lot of transparency. And on paper, jumping out of that seems crazy. So I redefined my success. I know this sounds selfish. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. And so I wanted to.
Not selfish at all, my friend.
I wanted to write. I have a blog. I want to write what I want to write. I want to talk to the people I want to talk to people. I want to manage my time. I want to work when I want to work and not when I want to work. And I just wanted ultimate control. And so my definition of success is, the control I have with my business and my life. And, hopefully the financial success will come with that. But right now I'm doing what I want to do in a space I want to do it in.
All right. One, I'm so proud of you. Super proud of you. It is one of the greatest. It's one of the greatest fears that a lot of people prior to the pandemic were like, there's no way. They asked for a simple, can we work from home for one day? And I mean, companies were like, absolutely not. It can't be done. And look, we're all working from home, and people were seeing how efficient people are now. So imagine the stress level for a lot of people are way, way down, because I'm not having someone hovering over myself, or I don't have the micromanager boss, or those timelines are different because I'm sitting here getting a commute, kids going to school, breakfast, getting in the car, getting to work, and then just like cranking, and getting home late. But now the time is definitely more manageable. How was it? So you started the company and the pandemic hit. So what was it like for you that all of a sudden you started hearing the ripples? You started hearing the ripples of what was going on. And all of a sudden you're like, there's no way this could be happening. I just started my own business. So what was it like for you in March, and how has it been throughout?
So I wrote a business plan. I had some mentors take a look at it. And I remember my son, the daycare is closed March 11th. And I remember being like, why did I write this business plan? This is out the door. So help me with the question again. I lost my
How was it in regards of where you heard about the company started, you heard the rippling of the starting, the world shuts down, and then how has it been for throughout this long, during the entire time of this pandemic, how has it been for you and for your company, and where is it now? What's happening?
Well, it's hard to say. I feel like I'm in a startup, right? And I feel like I have great conversations and leads, and then, I feel like I'm at a dead end. So it's hard for me to relate to if that's the pandemic or if that's just a startup. And so it's kind of nice in that, yeah, I can blame the pandemic, but more of, I feel like people are in the same boat, even though if they're in a business that's steady and they have a job, paycheck, all that, there's still that unknown. So like having that shared unknown is actually kind of comforting. It sounds bizarre, but it's not like I'm alone here. So I feel like there's this weird connection where we're all trying to figure it out. So I for me, it's been manageable. It's like the most unique and crazy experience I've ever had. And it's like super intoxicating and just feels really good and a breath of fresh air. It's insane to say in this environment, I know, but that's just how it feels.
What is it about this that's the breath of fresh air?
I guess it's focusing time on people's health for me and what I value personally, and I think is extremely important for my family. And if I can help someone get healthier, I mean, that would be my ultimate goal. So I feel like what I was doing before and putting a lot of energy towards was not directly related to health at all. And so now I'm in that space.
What is something that, what were the first steps for you? So I've decided that I've watched Hannah. If Hannah could do it, I could do it. What would be the first couple of steps? Like if you gave us 2 or 3 items of, I have the idea and now I'm I'm gonna push the gas pedal. Someone's out there that's thinking about it. Where do we start?
I think you start talking about it. I was talking about it with my husband for years, someone you could confide in. I also started talking about it with everyone because it's just good to hear. You don't always want to hear people's reactions, but it's almost like you put yourself out there, you're thinking about this. What do you think? Not that you need to have any of that resonate, but it's just good to know. I also really critical for me when I was looking for some of the experts to kind of partner up with. Again, I don't have a wellness background professionally. So I met some females in this industry that have been in the industry for about 15, 20 years. And so I had weekly calls with them, and they're not in the wellness space. But again, it's just, for me, I think out loud. And so it was important for me to talk about it. So I would start there.
I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. What did your, so I mean, I'm assuming that a lot of different corporate organizations that you worked with in the past, in the financial realm, they were the lowest hanging fruit for you to like go in there. So what did I mean, you had the support of your husband. So I always ask people, hey, during the pandemic, did you marry well? So
yeah, I know.
That's like really, really, people are realizing if they married well right now, but he was supportive in regards of you jumping ship. What did your family think? What did your past colleagues think about you changing careers? I mean, it's like a dramatic change. And are they supportive in regards of bringing you into their companies?
Most of my family wasn't surprised. I think they knew that I was doing well in an industry, but it wasn't where I belonged ultimately. My colleagues were shocked. again, because you have that visibility, you're at a great firm. Why would you do this, especially in this environment? I think finance, you come from a typically, a pretty conservative colleagues, right? Um, but, I think my business plan too was initially to just contact all the people I worked with, get into their companies. And it's not quite that easy too, right? I'm still proving myself from a professional standpoint. They know me as someone else. They trust the work that I did in the finance space, but maybe not here yet. And so that was also the point of teaming up with these experts, because I need the credibility and I need the expertise. I need people that have been in the industry for years. So, and with that, they have exposure to other corporations. And, I mentioned the manufacturing businesses. I mean, these are businesses that I had never dealt with before. And so their touch points have kind of expanded my network. So again, my business plan was go and, grow organically through my contacts. And it's kind of, it's so much bigger than that. And also I'm a young company, so I take the opportunity wherever it is. One of the unique wellness benefits that's come up a lot recently has to do with working parent support. And so when I launched this company this summer, fitness, mental health, life coaching, that was kind of what resonates. But, how to raise a newborn and re-enter the workforce in a pandemic. I mean, like, you can't even write that.
No, honestly, because think about it, like the last pandemic was 100 years ago and most women were not working.
No. And not just women, right? And okay, now you don't have a newborn. Now you have an 18-month-old, but they're not sleeping, they're not eating. And so there's some wonderful local providers that are able to, former nurses that are able to help with this. And so it's just these other offerings that you wouldn't previously define in wellness, are kind of creeping into the space because of the pandemic.
It's so interesting how you've had clear distinct, like athlete, finance, now you're an entrepreneur. I feel that they all come together in regards of how you are going. I mean, you're not one to lose. Right? I mean, literally, you're not. It's just like the careers that you've chosen, the paths that you've gone through. You're not one to lose. If you're going into something, you're going in at 100 miles per hour. We don't know where this pandemic is going to go. We don't know where the industry is going to go, but you're learning about this industry. It's like now, like the question that I asked about in the financial world, but I'm asking in regards of healthcare. Where do you believe it should go instead of where do you believe it's going to go? Where do you believe that healthcare should go post? And I mean, we're still in it. So during and post pandemic.
So I think the line of responsibility, or who bears the responsibility of health between the employer and the employee, is going to shift more to the employer. The way I grew up in the corporate setting, it was focused on the individual. And now, can the employer create an environment, whether it's physical or virtual, that nurtures that employee? I think we're going to see incredible stats come out of the pandemic as far as chronic disease and healthcare costs in general. And that's, I think, where, in the way that businesses strategically plan their business, I think they're really going to have to strategically plan the support of their employees. Usually wellness benefits, what I've come across, are kind of a second look, or, a budgeting line item. And now the values that you have as a business with your customers is also going to have to translate more to your employees. And I think employees are expecting that from what I've come across.
But when you say it's going to be transferred from the individual, the employee to the employer cost. They're trying to think about their cost, and you're telling me in regards of it's going to transfer to them. They're trying to avoid that, and so is there a risk of losing your employees because of that?
There may be, but we like to think of it more as an investment than a cost, because the spend on wellness is typically preventative. And then you have, um, that investment in the employee, and you avoid, they call it absenteeism, presenteeism, the retention goes up, productivity goes up. So it's more about convincing them that it's, preventative investment, and saving them on the back end.
I always say that to anyone that's listening, to anyone that's in your realm, you should definitely be a need to have, not a nice to have, because you shouldn't be a pat on the back where, oh, look, I go, look what we're doing for our employees. We're the best of the best. Where the need to have is at any time, one of your employees could just say, I'm tapping out, I'm out because I can't do this anymore and take care of me. Especially when they see someone in their lives or someone in their colleagues that are hurting. You think on the inside they're fine, but they're not, and then all of a sudden there's cracks in the wall, and when the cracks happen, then you realize, oh God, I should be taking care of myself too.
Exactly.
So if you were looking for the ideal client, who's the ideal client for you?
Well, I think it's someone that is willing to invest in their employees. And I don't mean that from a dollar standpoint. I mean, meeting with Ripple, having the conversation about wellness, trying to understand where the health risk behaviors lie, who's the most vulnerable employees. I think it it takes a comprehensive look to really create a program that works. So someone who has that willingness and dedication is who I'm looking for. Size wise, I call it small to middle size. That varies, up to 20 employees, up to 200 employees. I think that's our sweet spot. Again, there's wonderful apps out there, and larger companies, wellness companies. We're kind of playing under that space. We're the highly customizable wellness program.
I love that you say that because I have the Fitbit and everyone like and it's so funny because a lot of companies will go and buy a mass amount of Fitbits and they're like, okay, we're gonna have a competition on how many people do steps. And they
Right.
and then they think that counts. And so I like that you just said it's customized to the company because sometimes people just think I just saw it online, someone's mentioned it, I'm just gonna go for this and just check a box. And you to know that there's an or like a business like yourself where we customize to your key employees, which is really, really important. That makes a difference because everyone wants something that's for themselves, that's designed for me. I'm not just mass produced. And I think that's like one of the things that it stands out for you to say that right from the get-go, where we're customized to your company.
Yeah, I love it. You nailed it.
All right,
Feel
so
free to tell everyone that.
I'm all over it. I'm all over it. I'm here for you. Okay, so before I ask my last question, I have to ask, let's talk about the name Ripple. Where did it come from? Because I mean, I could use Ripple in 10 different ways. So what's the definition for you, and what does it mean to the people that listen to like or hear the word Ripple?
Well, I felt like my personal wellness journey and, how I got to launching my own company was like a small flame kind of growing, and um, I felt something and I wouldn't act on it, then I would. And so I think for me, just small incremental changes when you're ready, whether it's related to your career or wellness or relationships, is like that's how you really change and that's how you really grow. Because when you go in and do a massive overhaul of your life and your career and your wellness, like it doesn't stick ever. And so I felt like this small, highly focused approach, would resonate with people, and I like the name, so that's where it came from. So.
Well, the thing is, I do love that because all it takes is one little just like most people like think about like I'm gonna go and run a marathon and like yeah, but maybe that's not a good idea. And so it is one of those, like the small little ripples become that big wave. And I think that's one of the things that people need to understand, that when we want you to change your life, and if you go full out like waves, tsunami, like you're gonna fail. And when you do those little like incremental like ripples, it is a smart way to go, because it's a little bit that leads to a lot. And sometimes people feel, they hear the word, especially if they're not healthy, internally, externally, they hear about their companies like advocating for it, not forcing it, but advocating for it. They just get to the point where they're like, no, no. I mean, they were scared. And so I think that's, again, just going back to the customizable, it makes the most sense, because I'm not forcing you, I'm not making you, I'm not rushing you. I want you to understand that I'm here to make sure that you succeed. Your company is here to make sure that your company brought me in to make sure that you succeed, and increments. And before you know it, you're on your own doing it, and you feels good, versus the assumption of it's all in or nothing.
Exactly.
Goodness gracious. But see, here we are. See, this is what we're doing. Yes. My last question is, if anyone is listening, what would be a personal ask, and what would be a professional ask that you would ask of anyone that is listening to you right now? So two, a personal ask and a professional ask.
Personal ask is slow down, figure out what you want. If you're feeling out of balance and you're feeling lost or stuck, sometimes you need to move, sometimes you need to sit down, just try and change it up. That's my own personal mantra. If it's not working the direction you're taking, just turn around, go another direction. And professionally, I think it's, where do you fall as far as, keeping the employees that work for you, where's their health in your thought process?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not there, and if it's not top of mind, let us help you get there. I'm happy to try and convert people, but I think honest, real conversations, starting with individuals' own healths, can help people understand, where their employees should be going. And I don't want to stand up here being, you should do that, you should do this. It's, let's have a conversation, and understand what you're looking at of your employees, and also what you're taking from them from a health perspective. And let's help you give some of that back. So.
Beautiful. Hannah, oh my God, this is like been such a great conversation. I love that. I love, again, how Christina brought us together. I love what you're doing. It's needed. I mean, it is 100% needed. Too many times people just aren't taking care of themselves. And too many times people are just like, when you ask them, how are you doing? They're like, I'm fine, but they're running 150 miles per hour in every single direction. And they don't take care of themselves until something goes wrong. And when something goes wrong, it's usually really wrong. It's really, not that it can't be turned back. Yesterday I met with a company. I mean, I traveled to Foxborough, Mass, and I met with a company. And one of the guys I was talking to, happy-go-lucky, like great guy, and he's like, he's helping me understand the business model. And he goes, yeah. He goes, and he just out of conversation, just spit it out. He goes, yeah. He goes, like last year at this time, I had a heart attack. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Because I had a heart attack last year. And I'm like, what? I go, is it in your family? Because I was thinking about David Letterman and his family. He's like, yep, it's in my family, because I had 3 arteries that were extremely clogged. I'm like, what have you changed? I go, well, I'm sorry. I said to him, I'm like, one, I'm happy that you're here. You woke up this morning. Yay. Yeah. A year later. I go, but what have you changed? He goes, I'm not going to lie to you. He goes, I should be exercising. I work in an exercise place. I should be exercising. I should be eating better. I've gotten a little bit better. I've lost a little bit of weight. I go, but it's really hard to change the habits.
It is.
So that's why, again, I'm going to go back and I'm going to, like, for the third time, I'm going to say customizable, because when you try to do everything like everyone else, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It has to be something that's just for you. And this guy works in an exercise arena, works with the best of the best equipment, and had a heart attack. It's in his family. And he's like, and he said, he's like, it's really hard for me to change my habits.
It is really hard. It's not just him. And again, that goes back to, can you give us 10 minutes a day? Can you give us 20 minutes a day of some sort of focused wellness? It doesn't have to be massive. So there is hope to
There
change
is
that
hope.
behavior. So
Oh, I love it. There is hope. Hannah, thank you so very much for taking the time to talk to me. I really do appreciate it. I mean, I love learning about this, and I love that you're Attila. You are Attila. You are going out there and you're going to nail it.
so nice
You
talking
come,
with you, Jodi.
well, you come in nice and soft, but I'm like, there's no way. She's a soccer player and she's in finance. I go, she's a silent Attila. I love it. Thank you very much. I go, and I look forward to talking to you again soon, because at the beginning of the year, I want to see how everyone makes it through. So I've
Yeah.
seen so many different people, and I really want to make sure that everyone's still doing very well and healthy. But also, I want to make sure that more and more people are understanding that you didn't just start this just to quit. So,
Oh, awesome.
so
Yeah,
let's keep the conversation going.
thank you, Jodi, and thank you for letting me share my story on your platform. I really appreciate it, and I think what you're doing is pretty incredible.
It's my guilty pleasures. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's my guilty. I get to meet new people, and I get to sit there and catch up with my old friends. So I do really, really enjoy these times. But I can't handle hearing just small businesses are failing when I know so many of them are doing really, really, really well or more growing. So bravo for being in this world.
Thank you. Take care,
Talk to you
Judy.
soon.